Doing those overviews is very good.
John, let me push you on what may be a disagreement here that might be useful for us to bring out. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's just you're talking about two different things. But you seem to say very clearly you don't need to understand the culture we're in. And Al gave a talk yesterday on understanding the culture we're in.
Right.
So help us think this through. Do we see two faithful Christian brothers who are
I can answer that very
things?
simply. I said I don't spend a lot of time trying to understand the nuances of the culture I'm in because I'm in the culture. And I know what the culture feels like. I mean, look, I read the newspaper, I'm exposed to what's going on in the culture. I don't want to be a student of the culture. I want to be a student of the Word of God that confronts the culture, the nuances that come and go. In fact, the pace at which the culture shifts is beyond my ability to catch up in some ways, but I'm in it. It's a greater challenge for me, say, to go to Russia for a week and try to connect there, or to go to Latin America, or to go to wherever, because I'm not in that culture. But we're all saturated with this culture. We may not know who said what, or what the specific forces are, or who the influencers are, but we know what it feels like. And I think we know, just in general, how to direct the Word of God at those things that are manifestly evident about our culture.
Al, thoughts, comments?
Yeah, and John and I have actually talked about this before, and I think he's talking about culture more as the artifacts of culture, and I'm talking about culture more as the overarching reality. You know, the very fact, I mean, how we dress, how we speak, the furniture we're sitting in right now, the platform, the technologies we're using, that's all a part of the culture. It's a world in which we can speak and certain things make sense to us, where they might not make sense to someone else. And the great danger is that, as I was saying yesterday with all the self-hyphenated things I went through, there's a real danger that if we're not thinking about how the people are thinking when they come into us, then we're not sure what they're hearing is what we want them to hear from us. Like I say, the instinct of this generation is to translate whatever we say into another form of therapy anyway. And so I don't basically see any conflict here, because the last thing I want is for people to think that in preparation for preaching, they need to go out and spend a lot of time with the artifacts of culture. I don't want them reading the gossip pages, and I don't want them going, thinking they have to start Googling the news stories.
But you do feel called and particularly equipped to be more a student of the culture than maybe any of the four of us.
Well, and perhaps to do that for people so they don't have to do a lot of it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly benefit from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were talking about this a little bit last night with John Piper. I know there's a tremendous sense of pressure that could come on all of us about reading all these zillions and zillions of books that analyze everything, and you feel like, every new book that comes out, everything makes me feel guilty, like I'm gradually becoming uneducated. I'm going the wrong direction here because the volume of material is going up and I'm not moving. But I think it's very important to say to you guys, just be an expert on the Word of God, and you will always know what to say to the culture. Amen. And tap into the kind of resources that are just like that little book that we passed out today. They don't sell, so they get rid of the inventory by doing things like that. Called Why One Way. That is an assessment of the thinking of the culture, but from a biblical viewpoint. I mean, there are condensed ways in which you can kind of come to grips with that. There are articles that you can read from time to time. If you want to do something immediately and very facile for your assessment of the culture, get on Al's blogs and just read that stuff, and it's all digested profoundly and richly and very helpfully. You can buzz through that. It takes him hours to do it. You can read it in a very brief amount of time and absorb that, and you'd be the cultural expert of all experts if you just read his thing every day.
I think that's true.
Well,
that's true.